Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corman Productions with my co-host Stacie, here to talk about the show From. We're doing a recap of Season 1 of the new show. In preparation to talk about Season 2, the series description, because this is the first time we're covering this series, reads as follows. Unravel the mystery of a city in the middle USA that imprisons everyone who enters. As the residents struggle to maintain a sense of normalcy and seek a way out, they must also survive the threats of the surrounding forest. The series is created by John Griffin, and I'm pretty sure he has writing duties on almost all the episodes thus far. I'm going to give you a little bit of background for the new people joining us, because I'm assuming we're going to have some new people watching. Me and Stacie have just finished covering Season 1 of the Quantum Leap revival. I actually was put onto the series by Stacie herself. She brought up the series and talked about wanting to do this podcast. Initially, she was talking about doing a solo run where she would just record her thoughts and then have me upload it. But then, realizing that there was only 10 episodes of this series, I figured I could catch up real quick, real easily. So I decided to jump in with her. There will probably be some spoilers, so if you haven't watched any of the episodes of Season 1, you should probably go and do that and come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you like this podcast and want to support the channel, please like, share, and comment, as well as subscribing to our channel. All right, Stacie, lead us off.
All right. Hey, Fromily. Season 2 starts this Sunday, April 23rd, so we're close when this uploads. If you didn't have a chance to rewatch Season 1, here you go. This is basically everything that happened in the first season. So I thought we'd just recap Season 1, have a chance to discuss this with Dave. As you just heard, he has just finished his one and only playthrough of the show.
Yeah, I gotta say that after finishing the final episode of Season 1 just last night, I am so happy that it's only a couple of days before they debut Season 2.
Yeah.
And I don't have to wait a whole year.
Well, that's why I had to rewatch it this close. To be honest, I'm pretty sure this was my 5th watch through of the series.
Which is why, I mean, you generally would know more than I would anyway. You catch things that I don't. But yeah, that's why I have you along for the ride.
Right.
So you can explain things.
So I'm going to kind of run the show today. Usually Dave handles first chair of our discussions, but we're going to do it a little different for this one just because I am pretty well versed in this show, I think.
Definitely more so than me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Que Sera Sera, here we go.
Yeah, speaking of which,
okay.
Can you explain to me what that theme song for the series even means?
Well, I don't know. Que Sera Sera is talking about, we can't control the future. We don't know what's going to happen. It's a mystery. As far as we can tell, there's no real time element to what's going on in From, but to be honest, even after a whole season, we really have no idea what it's about. So it could be about anything, right? We don't know why these people are trapped here. We don't know what these monsters are. We don't know. So I don't know. It's a fun song, and it's presented really creepily in those opening credits.
It's a song I generally enjoy, and you pointed out to me that there's a Quantum Leap connection.
It is, yeah. So we're not talking about Quantum Leap, although we could be with Que Sera Sera, because in the pilot episode, Sam gets the pregnant woman drunk to keep her from giving labor, and she gives us a presentation of Que Sera Sera. So it links right into the pilot of that show, which we so often discuss here. And if you don't watch Quantum Leap, go watch it and then come listen to our whole podcast about that, because we've covered that series greatly as well. All right, so grab your can of peaches, hang up your talisman, and let's get started reviewing everything about Season 1. In the pilot, we begin to meet the characters that live in this really weird community. We've got Sheriff Boyd Stevens, and he is played by Lost alum Harold Perrineau. They're the creators of Lost are behind this series as well, so he was really their kind of flagship advertising point here.
Was John Griffin?
I couldn't tell you who they are. Don't ask me that.
Oh, okay.
I don't do behind the scenes stuff.
Gotcha.
All right, and then there's Sarah. She's the waitress at the diner, and she hears voices. Christy is the medic, and her nurse, whose name I didn't bother to remember the nurse's name. And then there's Kenny. He's the deputy, and he's here with his parents. Kenny's father has dementia and is living under Christy's care at the clinic. We meet Frank and his wife Lauren and daughter Megan, and those two do not make it through the opening credits after being eaten alive by those vicious monsters that came knocking one night falls. And Megan lets the monster into the window, and it's a grisly, grisly scene. Throughout this episode, we'll also meet the characters of Father Kotry, Donna, who's the leader of Colony House, Boyd's son Ellis and his girlfriend Fatima, who live at Colony House. We meet the bartender Tom, and we meet Sarah's brother Nathan, who tends to the animals. And then we meet the Matthews family, who just got stuck in the town after their RV comes up upon a fallen tree and a murder of crows. And they are Jim and Tabitha, along with their kids Julie and Ethan. Don't forget about Ethan's imaginary friend Norman. And then we also learned that this family has recently lost a third child named Thomas. It's been an uncommon occurrence that 2 vehicles have been brought into this impossible town at the same time. And the second vehicle is a car occupied by friends Toby and Jade. So the 2 vehicles crash into each other, causing Ethan to get trapped in the overturned RV. An injured Toby goes into town for help. Kenny, Father Kotry, Ellis, they go and they get Tabitha, Julie, and Jade and bring them back into town, but night has fallen. They accidentally slash their tires on the spike strips that were meant to immobilize the RV. They make a run for Colony House and encounter the monsters. Boyd and Christy stay in the RV with Jim trying to free Ethan. They use a talisman that Boyd picked up at Frank's house this morning, but they're not sure it's going to work to keep the monsters at bay. And at this point, we don't really know what that means, but as we watch the series, we'll learn that if you keep these talismans up, the monsters can't get in unless you open the window and let them in. But they didn't know if it was going to work in a vehicle. They took the chance, and good thing it did work. And then Sarah, listening to voices that she hears in her head, goes to the clinic and kills the injured Toby. And it's been a really crazy 24 hours, and that's episode 1.
Yeah, so when I first watched this episode, we started off with that really creepy imagery of the girl and that grandmother figure that's outside the window, and she opens the window letting her in despite the pleas of her mother not to do that, and bad things happen. Really creepy start. And then we had that scene with the sheriff Boyd Stevens, played by Harold Perneau, and he's yelling at this guy who's coming. I think his name is, actually I don't even know who his name is. Frank, is it? Yes, okay, so the dad, he's yelling at the dad, we're not sure what, he's, ranting and raving about keeping the windows shut and protecting the family, and then we see the little girls with their insides basically gone, and it's a very gory scene. It's like, whoa, this is a really messed up series.
Would you want to move into that house?
No, not so much.
No, and they didn't even bother to clean it up first.
No,
I think they just, closed that bedroom, Megan's room, and never used it, because, the family that ends up living there, I think just stays in one room, and they don't go near that room.
So they didn't even take care of the bodies?
They took care of the bodies, but when we go see this room again, you just see it's still covered in blood.
I mean, have you ever tried to get blood out of things? It's
but it didn't look like anybody even tried.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, so episode 2 continues the events of that same first night. The team that's been running for Colony House barely make it in. They didn't want to open the door, but finally the residents of Colony House open the door, and Donna, the leader of the house, ties up the newcomers, says, "This is how we do it here." And she spends the night explaining things to them and telling them how they are stuck in this town. And, of course, that's a hard pill to swallow. Donna tells us about her sister and how she died on their first night here. And we also meet more residents of Colony House, including Trudy and Victor. Meanwhile, in the RV, Christy patches up Ethan, who has had a dream about Victor's drawings, the Lake of Tears, and spiders. And I feel like we should pay attention to everything that this child has to say, because he seems to have some really crazy insights. And I have a feeling every single word of speech that young boy gives us is going to eventually mean something in this series. After killing Toby, Sarah mutilated him to make it look like the monsters did it, and then leaves the clinic door open. The monsters, of course, get in, killing Kenny's dad and that nurse whose name I didn't remember. And we've gone from 96 nights without incident to now 2 nights in a row full of death.
And I was wondering at this point what was up with Sarah's character. Why she stabbed that guy in the neck.
You can see already that she's hearing voices. She's giving resistance.
She made some kind of comment like, it's not your fault, before stabbing the guy in the throat.
Yeah, she doesn't want to kill people, but something's telling her she has to. Mm-hmm. And we end the episode with Ethan seeing the boy in white for the first time.
Which will play throughout the season.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't really remember too much about the episode 2, but I remember, being intrigued by what was going on at the time.
Yeah.
I had no idea what was going on with Sarah's character. And it was interesting to me how the sheriff handled the Matthews family, like basically slowly filling him in on what was going on. So yeah, that a good episode, decent.
All right, so episode 3, and these descriptions get a little more detailed the further we go. The Matthews spend their second night here at Colony House, and it's clear that this is no place for a family to be. There's people openly having sex, everyone's doing drugs. It's not a pretty place where you'd want your children to
Especially
be
the two people having sex. That was not a pretty sight, just for the record.
Jade finally wakes up. He's been passed out this whole time. And he doesn't believe anything that's going on. He's so full of himself. He thinks that Toby set all of this up as a giant escape room for him. Meanwhile, Father Cautry gives Jim and Tabitha a tour of the town. Julie wanted to go, but they wouldn't let her come with. They told her she had to stay at Colony House and watch her brother. Cautry tells them they have to decide where they want to live. In the town, which would mean they'd live in Frank's old house, where the mother and daughter just died, or they could live at Colony House. And again, we saw Colony House probably isn't the best choice for them. Boyd struggles with enforcing the one law that they have here, which would mean sentencing Frank to death for not nailing Megan's window closed, and offers him an escape in the form of exile. Let's see. Ethan befriends Victor, who is measuring to see if the trees have moved, and is very interested to hear about the boy in white.
Yes.
At the choosing ceremony, Jade, Jim, Tabitha, and Ethan pick to live in the town. And Julie, in an act of rebellion, picks Colony House. Maybe those parents should have let her go with them on that tour.
Yeah, actually, at first, I wasn't totally sure what Julie's motives were for that. Like, was it just an act of rebellion, or was there something else?
I think she liked what was happening at Colony House. Like, she was comfortable there. But it's really the only thing she's seen so far. Because they didn't let her go into town.
Right.
So she's like, you don't want me to go to town? I won't go to town.
How old is Julie exactly?
I think she's about maybe 16, would be my guess.
Something like that, yeah.
Let's see. So Kenny, that's the deputy, he shows Jade Toby's body, and Jade finally begins to realize that this isn't a game. Frank decides to take his punishment, gets locked in the box. Everyone settles in for the night, and the monsters quickly break into the box and kill Frank.
Yeah, that was quite an intense episode. I did like the fact that the sheriff was very conflicted about what was going on with Frank.
This is the only rule they have, is if you cause somebody's death, you're going in the box, which means your death. And he says, I built this box as a deterrent. I didn't expect to ever actually have to use it.
And he ends up talking to the priest, who's like, no, you got to do this.
Right. Father Cautry, is the one who convinced him, didn't convince him, because he still ended up trying to give the guy an out, but he was like, you have to. Like, that's the law. If you don't uphold the law, what's going to happen? Right.
Basically, everything will descend into chaos, and we will no longer have a society here.
Yeah.
The priest has a good point, but, this is coming from a priest, so this is kind of remarkable.
And also, you're kind of a small community to begin with. You really need to be killing people.
Right. I mean, there's always a possibility that you're going to get some more people are going to end up stuck there. But
I mean, he regrets what happened. It's not like he murdered his family.
That's true. The punishment, I don't know, entirely fits the crime.
Yeah, it's a very strict punishment system that they have in place, but it's their only rule.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
give them that.
So I actually really liked that scene between the priest and the sheriff as they talk about the fate of Frank is the guy.
Yep.
And I thought that was a really good scene between the two of them.
And ultimately, it became Frank's decision to take his punishment and go into the box. He said, I don't have any reason to live anymore. So.
And Jade in this episode is acting basically like a freak, not refusing to believe what's going on around him.
Right.
And he would continue to act like a maniac throughout the entire show.
So Jade, he's an eccentric millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
He is a software engineer, and he just sold some company for like bajillions of dollars. And yeah, he, there couldn't possibly be something bad happening to him.
Right. One thing I did like about the series in total was how the people in the town behaved. They all kind of behaved off. Like, they don't act like normal human beings. And I think that's, if you exist under a constant state of psychological stress, you're in a situation that you don't know of. You think you're safe during the day, but you don't really know because
Yeah.
anything can happen. And then at night, if you screw up, if somebody messes up, like happens at some point in this series, a lot of people are going to die.
Right.
So under that constant stress and duress, and then being in this unusual situation, you wouldn't act normal. You would act kind of awkward and weird.
Right.
Ranging from awkward and weird to manic, like Jade does throughout most of the season.
would think what I would do if I lived in this community is sleep during the day when it feels safer, and then just be up at night doing things.
Yeah? I'm not sure.
I don't think I'd be able to sleep with all that happening.
No, I don't think I would be able to either.
All right, so the fourth installment opens with a young Victor. He appears to be maybe, 8 or 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And he's emerging from a night in the storm cellar to find that everyone is dead. The streets are just covered in dead bodies. And I guess they really meant it when they told us he's been here for a long, long time. In the present day, he tells Julie he's starting to remember things that he thought were just dreams. So he's repressed all of this stuff from his childhood. Trudy makes it clear that everything at Colony House gets shared by borrowing Julie's clothes. And Boyd cleans up Frank's remains out of the box. Tabitha and Jim talk about their dead baby. Then Jim and Ethan have a VIP breakfast at the diner while Tabitha visits Julie and tries to convince her to come stay with them in the town. Ethan thinks that they're on a quest and they have to save someone before they can go home. That sounds awful familiar, Quantum Leap audience. He also thinks that his dead baby brother Thomas is on a quest, and it's really kind of a sad moment with his dad having to deal with that conversation.
Kids that young generally don't understand death, though I'm not totally clear as to how old he is either.
I don't know.
Like 4 or 5 years old?
Yeah, maybe 6. He's young, but
Yeah.
He's old enough to, be cognizant of what's going on around him.
Yeah.
Julie tells her mom that she knows her parents are planning on getting a divorce and that this trip that they were on was what they were going to tell the kids. Kenny shows Jade a map in the police station of where everyone came from when they saw the fallen tree, in which case everybody came from different parts all over the country. So it's not like everybody was in Chicago and suddenly they're here. They came from all over the place when they all came upon the same fallen tree and ended up in this same town. So the where is a big mystery. And Jade leaves the police station with the police scanner because sometimes it just turns on, and that intrigued Jade. Boyd and Father Cautry have some words, and we get some hints that something really bad happened with Boyd's wife, but we don't quite know what yet. Victor takes Ethan into the woods to look for the boy in white, and we learn about faraway trees, which can magically transport items or people to unpredictable other locations. So careful with them. We meet vicious dogs, both in Victor's childhood storyline and in the present. And young Victor and the boy in white play surrounded by dozens of mutilated bodies. We're told that Victor was alone after that for a long time before anyone else came. Boyd tells Jim that he'll talk to Donna about Victor having a gun and tell him to stay away from his son. Fatima and Ellis show Julie her new sleeping arrangements, which is in the corner of their attic bedroom. Seems kind of weird to me.
It was definitely a weird setup.
Boyd joins Jim, Tabitha, and Ethan for dinner at the diner, and a song unexpectedly plays on the jukebox that seems to have some meaning to Jim and Tabitha. They mentioned some trip that they took that this song reminded them of. And then Sarah gets some stigmata-type message on her arm that says, "Kill the boy," before she has a seizure. And Victor digs a bunch of graves because he says he wants to get a head start this time.
So a couple things
and
here.
That was super creepy.
Yes, it was super creepy. The Julie bringing up the fact that their parents were going to get a divorce plays into her motivations, I think, for why she chose Colony House.
Sure.
I think she was already, kind of mad at, well, no, I'm not kind of mad. She was very mad at her parents already. So this was an act of rebellion, an act of kind of striking out against them. And I also think, given where this season goes, that she was intrigued by Fatima already. At the time that I'm watching their relationship, start to bud. And I was kind of curious, like, what is this? Like, is this a mentorship type deal, or is Julie like becoming interested in Fatima? And that will, of course, play later into the season. The dog that Victor, Ethan, and the Matthews run into, is acting way more vicious than the one that the sheriff eventually encounters. Actually, the sheriff encountered in the past.
Right.
Comes
in
across
a future episode.
Right. Comes across a dog that's much more friendly than the dog that we see here, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And the one that Victor encountered in his childhood.
Right. And it's unclear if these are all like the same dogs or what's going on. But yeah, we keep seeing dogs.
Right. And it's very curious as to why whoever is controlling Sarah, we don't even know if they're the same creatures that are like killing everybody, wants the boy to die exactly.
Right. And we don't really know why they want anything to happen that they're making happen, or why Sarah believes that. Right.
If I start, if I'm living in the situation and it's telling me to do things, this is coming from a sane person, I guess. I don't know that Sarah is sane. I would not necessarily listen to those voices myself.
Yeah.
But, whatever. And yes, that was a very creepy ending. Victor digging the graves, and it's like, oh, well, I guess a lot of people are going to die pretty soon.
Yeah, so Victor knows things. Ethan seems to know things. They have a connection already. We've seen the only two characters so far who have seen the boy in white. They're definitely the two people to really pay attention to, I think. And I don't think either of them really know that they know what they know, but they know things.
It's like on a almost subconscious level. I think in Victor's case that he spent so many years alone that he's just so socially inept.
He absolutely has the mindset of a child. Like nobody raised him. I mean, who knows how old he was by the time someone else got there.
So I think part of why he can't explain things is because he just doesn't have the ability. He was alone for so long that he's just so socially messed up, really. Yeah. Comes down to it. Almost kind of like an autistic person.
Right. Oh, and I think he definitely could be on the spectrum somewhere.
Right.
As well as, all of the influence of how he wasn't raised.
Right.
All right, so episode 5. The Matthews start to use their walls as a whiteboard and write out all of the questions we're starting to wonder, such as, where are we? How do the talismans work? And did we survive the crash? They have a lot of questions. We all do.
Right.
After her seizure, Sarah spends the night in the clinic with Christy, and we find out that Christy has a fiancé waiting for her at home in Grand Rapids. And she is the reason Christy's reluctant to get close to Kenny, even though it's obvious there's some chemistry between them. Sarah asks Christy a very suspicious hypothetical question. If you were asked to do something bad, and in exchange we'd all get to go home, would you do it? And Christy unknowingly gives Sarah permission to act on her order to kill the boy.
If I were Christy, I would ask more questions.
Yeah, it was a very weird conversation. So at Colony House, Julie makes a list of all the people back home who must be missing her, and Fatima recruits Ellis to take the day off and show Julie a good time at the Brundles, which is a watering hole that they go and play in. Jade, being a genius software engineer that he is, begins to work on a plan to broadcast over the radio that he got from the police station and get a message to the outside world. We learn that Ethan's wounds are healing faster than they should, and that point was just one little line, and it was never brought up again, but I feel like that is important somehow.
I mean, it has to be.
Yeah. So Ethan's wounds are healing, and they shouldn't be healing so fast, and that doesn't come up with anyone else, but I definitely want to remember that as we head into season 2. Boyd visits his wife, Abby's grave, and shares with her that he has a plan that might get everyone home, asks her for a sign to let him know if he should do it. Sarah goes to see Ethan and invites him to come see the animals at the barn, but as much as she doesn't like it, Mom decides to go with.
And that was a very wise decision.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm like, please don't let the boy go with her. Please don't do that.
Nathan visits Father Cautry, and he's hanging out in this really weird, stone circle in the field where Cautry actually spends a lot of time. And I have a lot of questions. What is that stone? It's like this weird monument of... It reminds me, of something from Skyrim.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I kind of assume that's where they buried people.
But I don't think they, like, built this. I'm pretty sure it was part of the structures that
probably.
was there.
But I'm guessing that the priest is specifically using that place as a burial site. That's my guess.
Well, it's where he buried his bag of goodies that we'll unbury later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Nathan tells Kotri what's been going on with Sarah. So now somebody knows what Sarah's been doing, the fact that she's the one who left the clinic door open. And he's trying to get some help for Sarah because, you know, he realizes his sister's kind of gone cuckoo. Meanwhile, Sarah locks Tabitha into a hideaway in the barn and then goes after Ethan with a scalpel that she stole from the clinic when she was with Christy. Nathan shows up just in time to intervene, and Sarah accidentally slices his throat in the struggle.
The second person for Sarah to get in the neck. Kill somebody by, like getting them in the neck.
Right. This was the second person she physically killed and the fourth death she's responsible for in like 24 hours.
Yeah, she's on quite a roll.
Ethan, in all of this, runs away and goes and finds Julie, who's on her way back from the Brundles. And then the Matthews family gets all reunited. Father Kotri tells us that Sarah ran off into the woods. Chrissy blames herself for not realizing something was going on with Sarah.
And you really should have, Christy, so yeah.
And Boyd gets a sign that he is looking for from his wife because If I Had a Boat started playing on the jukebox. And we'll learn later what that song means to them.
Yeah, so that was a pretty intense episode.
Yeah, so we're halfway through the season now.
Mm-hmm. And we're gonna start getting into the really, really good episodes real soon. But yeah, I wasn't sure. I'm still not clear on why they want to. Even as the season concluded, I'm still not sure why the voices or whatever wanted that boy dead.
Well, the connection that I see is we keep talking about how the fact that two cars came at the same time, two vehicles came, and Victor tells us that happened before, a long time ago, when he was a boy, and everybody died when that happened. Mm-hmm. And I kind of feel like maybe the voices are trying to prevent everyone from dying because it's the people coming in the two vehicles that's the catalyst for whatever causes everybody to die.
I mean, if everybody dies, they don't have anybody to feed on, I guess.
Right. If that's who it is.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. It could go either. I could argue any direction of this.
I kind of get the sense that there's multiple different factions going on with different agendas that we know zilch about.
Right.
We especially get that feeling in the finale.
Yeah.
The last couple episodes, actually.
All right. So, episode 6 brings Tabitha to the church, and she's questioning if they're all dead.
Actually, so I'm curious because I'm not really in touch with the fandom yet.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really interacted with any of them yet. I'm curious if there are theories that these people are all dead.
Oh,
like, are
of course there are.
Yeah.
So, okay.
This is like some kind of purgatory or something.
That's one theory, and it could be the case. It absolutely could be because... So this show is from the creators of Lost. It's got a lot of Lost-type mystery feelings to it, and that was the big theory in Lost. Now, a lot of people think that that's what happened in Lost. Everybody was dead the whole time. It's not. If you think that everybody was dead the whole time, you need to go back and watch Lost again. And I do not understand how that conclusion became a thing that people believe, because that's not what happened. That's not what happened. They were not dead the whole time. But there was rumors that that's what the producers wanted to happen, and then they changed their mind, after they started the show. So it could be that's what they're finally doing here, is telling us a story about everybody is dead.
Gotcha.
So it absolutely could be. I don't know what I think yet. So yeah, she's questioning if we're dead, and Katja explains to her, well, you were already here before the RV crashed, so you must be alive. But I was questioning, couldn't you have died before coming to that tree, and you just don't remember that part? Now, one thing to note as we meet all these characters and hear all of their stories, because as it goes, we hear more and more stories about how people got here, and they're all dealing with some tragedy in their life, right? That's one consistent factor is the Matthews were dealing with the loss of their son. I can't think of them all off the top of my head, but they all had tragedy in their lives and things that they were dealing with. Like Kenny and his family, when they came here, they were looking for the father because he, disappeared in a fit of dementia, and they found him and were on their way bringing him home when they came upon the tree. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff everybody was dealing with. So that's got to be important somehow, right? That there's something going on whether did you all die?
Right.
Or is this some chance for you to fix something in your life, or what's going on here?
Right.
All right, so we quickly learn that Father Kotcher was lying to us about Sarah running off, and he has her tied up in the basement of the church. He believes that she's hearing voices, and he thinks that they may be living in the next yet-to-be-written book of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
She tells him all about the voices, which told her that if she does what they say, they'll help everyone get home. The voices told her that the 2 cars were coming, and they talked about the last time it happened and everyone died, and they told her to draw a picture for Father Kotcher and tell him that they watched you bury the bag, and this is proof. And this means nothing to Sarah. She has no idea what's going on, but Kotcher recognizes the drawing. Boyd tells Kenny about his plans to go off into the woods looking for answers. Jim realizes that the lamps don't actually have wires in them and that electricity shouldn't work. Jade comes to Jim, who he calls the roller coaster guy, for help with the radio. They strip the Audi that Jade and his friend came in of wires and parts, and then they climb up a tall tree with an antenna hooked to the radio. But Jade has this vision, and this is the second time he's had a vision in this series. The first one was, I think, in the pilot. He was in the storm cellar, and he saw some guy screaming, and that didn't make a lot of sense. But here he has a vision that's a little bit longer, and the tree is covered in blood, and there's mangled Civil War soldiers hanging from the tree. And then he sees the same symbol that he saw in that storm cellar during his first vision. And then he's chased by a Civil War soldier with a gun. But then Jim is there. The blood is gone. It was all a hallucination of some sort. Jade runs off. Jim tests the radio all alone. And he gets static.
Yay.
Yay.
Well, it's something.
It's something, but I was expecting something more than that. I don't know if it feels successful to get static. Wouldn't you get static without going up a tree?
I'm not sure. I guess what they think is that static is some kind of evidence of a signal at all.
But wouldn't you have tested it before even climbing the tree and gotten static if you couldn't get over the trees?
Maybe they weren't getting anything, and once they got over the trees, they got something, which was the static.
I don't know. So Tabitha and Ethan go to drop off some things from the house that they're not using into the diner. They've got this like storage room in the back, which I'm kind of curious because isn't that where the kitchen's supposed to be? And they're cooking food in this diner every day. This doesn't feel like the best place in town to be using as storage. There had to have been somewhere else they could have used as storage.
They're lucky they don't get shut down with some health code violations.
Ethan thinks they're going to find a quest map in this storage room, but what Tabitha finds is a bracelet, and she's absolutely positive this is the exact bracelet that she made for her husband Jim out of his father's bootlaces. Except he lost it in the hospital the night Julie was born. So a very long time ago. This bracelet's been missing, and it pops up in the storage of this town. And these are all of the belongings of, like, people past. And they just kind of sit in storage until somebody needs them. So that's weird.
Yes, it is very weird.
And we haven't got back to that mystery yet. But I can't wait to find out how that bracelet got there. Because it's making me think all of these people are destined to be here their whole lives, which is also very kind of Lost-like. Tabitha and Ethan start ripping the house apart, trying to follow the electrical outlets to see where the power is coming from. And that's going to become a very Tabitha thing to do. She's going to spend a lot of time digging the house apart.
You know, I was thinking that these people do not own these apartments that they're destroying.
They're not treating this house very well. They wrote all over the walls. Now they're ripping it up. Listen, if you're stuck here a long time, you might come to regret turning your walls into a whiteboard.
And oh, by the way, you're not getting your deposit back.
But it can't be any worse than the room upstairs covered in Megan's blood. So.
I mean, fair enough.
This house is going to be condemned soon. So Jade draws that symbol that he's been seeing for Kenny's mom at the diner, and she gives him a book from the storage room that's filled with drawings of that same exact symbol. Meanwhile, Boyd tells Kenny that he's sick. He believes he has Parkinson's disease, just like his dad did, even though it's not supposed to be hereditary. His symptoms are getting worse, and that's why he knows he needs to go looking for answers sooner than later. He feels he does not have a lot of time left.
I love this scene between the two of them. I thought it was really well done. And I generally enjoyed Kenny and the sheriff's relationship throughout this season.
Yeah, they have a great relationship, and they have a lot of back and forth, where they constantly take turns of being there for each other and fine-tuning what their relationship is.
Mm-hmm.
So Katri digs up this bag. He buried this bag when he first arrived here, and it contains a bottle of alcohol, some bloody clothes, and a candy bar. And I had to note that this is a Cosmo bar, which seems like a really similar concept to the candy bar that we found in the shared Lost and Once Upon a Time universe, which is the Apollo bar.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and I feel like they wanted it to be the same thing, but maybe they didn't have the rights to use that for whatever reason.
I'm sure.
And I don't know if you knew that, but Lost and Once Upon a Time are a shared universe.
I was not aware of that.
There's a lot
actually.
of crossover between the two.
Oh, gotcha. I didn't know that.
So the image on this chocolate wrapper matches the picture that Sarah drew. So this is what it meant to him. This was evidence that whoever told Sarah this did know that he buried this bag, and he's never told anybody. So there's no way Sarah could have known. At the colony house, a man named Kevin climbs the stairs while everyone else is asleep, and he meets a monster at the window who appears as a beautiful young woman. He has left flowers for her, which we saw earlier in the episode, and now we know what those were. And she asks, when can she come inside?
All innocent-like. She doesn't want to eat his insides or anything. Yeah, so the entire time I'm watching the priest going, what the hell are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Why do you... It seems like he's starting to believe Sarah, and I have no idea why he
believes
would.
her because he thinks there's something biblical going on.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess that's a typical priest thing to do, which is why, like, I'm not a big believer in that kind of thing, so maybe I'm not there with him with that stuff. But yeah, I'm just like, why do you believe her? Why aren't you dismissing this girl as crazy? She's already killed a couple people and been responsible for other people's deaths.
But it's not like he just let her go. He's at least holding her captive.
Right. Yeah, I see that. And also this guy, like, Kevin, he should know better.
Oh, he should know better. And from the sounds of it, I feel like they've been having this window relationship for quite a while.
Right.
So he's been resisting.
Mm-hmm. I think he's just, indulging in the fantasy and never going to actually... Yeah,
he seems like he must be lonely.
Yeah, I'm sure. And he does indicate that in the later episode. Yeah. But...
All right, so episode 7,
This one is brutal.
It's all been fun and games until now, sort of. Not really.
This was the episodes like that really hooked me because it's a great episode.
Yeah, if you thought the show needs more death and dismemberment, this is the one. Okay, so it's been 1 year since Fatima arrived in the town, and they're gonna have a big party. Yay!
Yeah, right from the get-go, I'm like, someone's gonna die.
I'm with Julie. I think it's really strange that they're going to celebrate the anniversary of when they came to this town. Mm-hmm. Celebrate your birthday if you need something to celebrate.
Right.
I don't know. Find something to celebrate that's not, I've been stuck here a year.
Well, it kind of fits with Donna's perspective because she is trying to make a home out of this place.
Right. The whole concept of Colony House is live for today, enjoy the life here because we're not going anywhere else.
Right.
And the whole concept of the town is we're going to survive, but keep trying to find a way to get home. Mm-hmm. And those are really the two different philosophies between Donna and Boyd.
Right. And it's actually interesting to note that throughout the series we get that kind of conflict between the newcomers who still have these wild ideas of trying to escape and the old guard that have been around for a while and have seen these things come to failure every time.
Right.
So that's an interesting little conflict, and it's well done, in my opinion.
Okay, so Fatima puts on this really ugly orange sweater because it's Ellis's favorite, and Trudy always wants this. She keeps it hidden from her. But Ellis seems more worried about pre-gaming. He's taking to the bottle pretty hard, and we will soon know why, is he doesn't like celebrating these anniversaries because it reminds him of his mother and what happened with her. In the most tragic event of the whole evening, the pantry's out of peaches.
That's pretty sad.
Now, Victor's been eating peaches for decades.
I'm surprised they didn't run out sooner.
And yeah, I want to know is where the heck did they get decades worth of canned peaches at anyways? And Donna's been helping him eat these peaches. It seems like he eats them every day or every couple of days, and the peaches are all gone. And he says, that's the one thing that's never changed here. I've always had my peaches, and that's just so sad for him that the peaches are gone. And I think he knows that the fact that the peaches are gone is important. I think that's why he knows tonight's the night shit's about to go down.
Right. I had a feeling when he was like when I rewatched the scene that he took that as kind of an omen of bad things to come.
Yeah. So the peaches are gone. So Victor sets off on what he's about to do for the night. Katri has a sleepover with Boyd at the post office that is now the police station. If you didn't notice, all of the buildings, used to have a different purpose. So the police station is actually a post office. The bar used to be a gas station, and the clinic used to be a school.
Mm.
So like they turned all of these buildings into things that better suited their needs. Anyways, Boyd tells Katri his plans to go out into the woods. Katri tells Boyd all about this buried bag of goodies. And he tells us a story about the night that he came to town. So the chocolate bar he had given to an upset boy in his congregation, which didn't help save the boy's life from his abusive, alcoholic father. Katri beat the dad, possibly to death. I was unclear if he meant he actually killed the dad or not.
I was under the impression that he actually did kill him.
And then Katri contemplated suicide. He was standing on a bridge when he heard the voice of God tell him that there is another way. He got in his car, started driving, and ended up in this town. And then buried the bag of evidence.
Right.
And Boyd's like, why tell me this now? Right? And draws a gun on him.
Well, he draws a gun after him after he reveals that he has Sarah locked in the...
Right.
Like,
he says, why tell me now? And Katri, that's when Katri says, I got Sarah tied up in the basement.
And that's when he pulls the gun.
Right.
And at that point, I was right there with the sheriff. Like, I didn't necessarily agree with him, like, shooting to kill or anything like that, but, like, at this point, the priest talked him into killing Frank. And, like, now he's holding a murderer of at least 4 people intentionally, like, in the basement of the church.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, I was right there with him. Like, hey, you made me do this, and now you're doing this? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And if I were the sheriff, I would be pissed at the priest at this point, too. And this is a great scene between the two of them, by the way. The story that Frank tells is a great story. As I was listening, I'm like, okay, where are you going with this story exactly? Like, at first I thought he was going to say something like he killed the boy or something along those lines. But it doesn't turn out to be that. Obviously, he just ends up killing the dad. He was trying to... He just kind of neglected to save the boy, really, when it comes down to it.
Right.
But this is a great scene between the two of them.
So yeah, Katri explains to Boyd that he thinks Sarah could be the ticket out of here. Presumably tells Boyd everything he knows now about what's going on with Sarah. And he must get through to Boyd because Boyd ends up believing all of this as we move forward. Meanwhile, Jim is working on a plan to improve the radio signal. Tabitha continues to work on her hole in the basement. And Jade obsesses over drawing that symbol over and over, writing all over Kenny's book, which Kenny's very upset about. And then he finds a Polaroid hidden inside the book with the symbol. And it's a picture of a young Victor in front of the diner with his lunchbox. And this is how we know this child is Victor, because he's always carrying that lunchbox everywhere.
I should point out that it's Kenny's mother who recognizes Victor in the picture.
Yes, it is.
And I don't know where to say this exactly, so I'll just say it here.
Okay.
Jade and Kenny's mother have a very interesting relationship throughout the season.
Yeah.
Like, Jade can't actually understand Kenny's mother. He doesn't speak the same language.
Right. I mean, she speaks a couple words of English.
But there's a point I remember where, like, he was laying in bed and Kenny was trying to get him for dinner, and he's like, I don't want to go to dinner. And then the mother comes in yelling in her language, and he's like, all right, fine, I'll go eat dinner, Jesus. But he doesn't understand a word of what she says, and yet they communicate. And
yeah.
That's like it. So it's a really interesting relationship.
Yeah, they do have an interesting relationship, and they have a lot of moments like that where they communicate with each other and they help each other in a lot of ways. And yeah, I think she definitely ends up becoming a mother figure for him. At one point, Kenny's talking to his mom in the diner, and she's like, I don't like him. And Kenny goes, that's what you say about the people you like the most.
Yeah, so, I like that little moment.
Yeah, you know that they're growing on each other. And we'll see by the end of the season that they actually become really close. All right, so at Colony House, Julie witnesses Fatima kissing Stacie and later asks if she can kiss her too. The party's in full swing. Kevin goes to talk to his monster girlfriend, and we're told her name is Jasmine. Jasmine has come to say goodbye. She can't stand to be in a relationship separated by a window any longer. So he gives in. He opens the window after she promises no one else will be able to get in. But predictably, Jasmine lasts about 30 seconds before she eats Kevin's face. Literally.
Yeah, not in the way that you would like.
And when finished with him, she opens the window back up to let all of her friends in. Ellis gets in a fight with a longtime Colony House resident Dale over, like, they're talking about, like, different dimensions, and
This fight is really not what it's, like, what they're arguing about.
Right,
Ellis is just looking to pick a fight.
Oh, absolutely. He's very drunk. They're talking about dimensions, and then Dale throws some stuff and makes some comments that, oh, Ellis, get him out of here before he shoots up the place, which later we'll learn what that's a reference to.
Right. I was very curious what that was about when it first came out.
Yeah. So there's some hostilities here. And so Ellis goes upstairs and leaves the party, goes back up to the attic. Trudy is sad, and she doesn't think she's going to make it to her own one-year party. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you might be right, Trudy.
I'm watching this scene, and I'm like, one of these two are going to die.
So, feeling sorry for Trudy, Fatima gives her that orange sweater that she's always kept hidden from her, tells her she looks better in it, and then Trudy heads upstairs to get her pillow, which we've already found out Trudy is, she loves her pillow. She's going to give the pillow to Fatima in return. Julie also heads upstairs, embarrassed about asking Fatima for a kiss, and she doesn't know where to go because Ellis is in her room. So she ends up joining Victor in his room because she says, this is the only place I can be alone. This
is interesting on multiple levels, in the fact that Jim, her father, really does not like Victor because of his relationship with Ethan.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting dynamic all the way around when we see it.
So she didn't know where else to go, and it's like sad. She's like, I have nowhere else to be alone, so I'm just going to come to your room. And that's like really dismissive.
Right.
Like, this is alone for you? Or are you just going to kick him out? What are you doing? I mean, maybe go sit in the bathroom or something.
Right.
So Victor appears to be packing. He's packed up his pictures, and he's got a couple of license plates that he packs up. And if you haven't yet, take a moment, go and open this scene and look around Victor's room. There's so many details in this image, and there was a picture of this I remember floating around social media at the time. Victor has all of these drawings, of course, which Victor's drawings are important, but there's drawings all over the walls to look at. There's a toy RV sitting on a shelf. There's a toy boat, which we know a boat is important to this story, at least, symbolically. Mm-hmm. There's a chess set, which was something going on between Kenny and his dad. There's toys and different things all over this room that are really symbolic of what's happening in this season. And it just really makes me think there's something else going on here with Victor.
Oh, I'm absolutely positive of that.
Like, almost to the point where I could postulate, is he causing all of this in his brain? Like, what is going on? I
don't think he's causing it. My idea is that he just sees it coming in some way. He doesn't, he's probably getting images of the future, but doesn't really understand
where did he get all these toys from? He must have had these toys with him. All of these toys that are going to predict future events in this town.
My thought was that he made them himself. Or maybe not. I don't know. All right. So, Trudy, remember, she went upstairs to get her pillow. She gets ganged up on by the monsters because she is so nosy. She just had to see what was going on in that room and walks right in, and they surround her, and poor Trudy. Then the monsters proceed to join the party. Yay! Uninvited party guests.
Yes, but don't worry. They have a contingency protocol. They just got to head for the van. So, Donna heads into town with as many people as she could save, and I don't feel like half the residents of Colony House could fit in that van.
No. I'm pretty sure
and
most of them
I also don't feel like she waited long enough to see if she actually got as many people as she could in the van, but she gets in the van and they drive away. Victor knew this was going to happen, right? So he heads out the window, takes Julie with him because she's in his room, and he puts Julie into a faraway tree, gives her his drawings and says, give these to your brother. And he says he'll be right behind her, but then he doesn't come through. Julie finds herself in that storm cellar, which we've seen multiple times. We saw Jade go there. We saw a past image of young Victor coming out of that storm cellar. So that's where Julie is. She manages to survive the night by hiding there in the cupboard. Ellis finds Trudy's body. He thinks it's Fatima because of the sweater, so he's a mess. He jumps out of a window to escape Smiley Monster, who I heard is going to have a actual speaking role next season, that actor.
Interesting.
The one that has the huge creepy smile.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Actually, that actor kind of reminded me of the movie Smile.
Yeah.
Because of that creepy smile.
It's all natural, by the way. There's no CGI. That's just his creepy smile.
Wow.
Yeah.
He must be fun at parties.
So he jumps out the window and runs into Fatima. So happy that she's not dead. They lock themselves into the entryway of the house. So they grab the talisman and they hang it up. But they're not sure it's going to work, but it does. It keeps both the monsters outside of the house and the monsters inside of the house at bay. And they're just kind of in this little entryway between the two doors.
I'm actually kind of curious. So the monsters that are in the house, where do they go when daylight hits?
Exactly. I have that note here too. Like, that's what I want to know. What happens to the monsters? I kind of thought, as the night ends, they just go off into the woods and hide. But the ones in the house never get brought up again. So Did they just disappear when morning comes?
Right. I mean, unless they went out the back or something.
But yeah, it's a question.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I think, limits the possibilities of where are the monsters? What are the monsters during the day?
Mm-hmm.
One theory I've seen is the dogs are the monsters.
Ah. Well, we do have a hint as to what the monsters are doing at the end of the season.
Well, yeah, that's true, but how?
Right. I got you.
Okay, so Donna and Co. in the van, they pull up to the station, beep in their horn. Boyd and Katya go outside to help get everybody inside, but unfortunately, Katya gets a monster to the throat, and he's not going to be able to finish his quest.
He has a very sad death scene.
Yes. But everyone that was in the van makes it into the station
so his death
safely.
Was not in vain.
He saved a lot of people.
Yeah, so that was a great episode. Super creepy, super well done. The suspense was off the charts. I thought everybody was going to die in this episode.
Yeah, that was the episode.
Right. The interesting thing to note is that the Fatima Julie thing, I don't even think is resolved for the rest of the season. They had that moment of awkwardness. She runs off, and then I don't think they have another scene together for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I don't think they do. The rest of the season is really focused on what do we do now as a community.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's interesting.
All right, in episode 8, we regroup after the horrific events the night before at Colony House. All of the survivors have moved into the town. They're taking up in people's basements and the clinic and all over wherever they can fit them, since Colony House needs to be cleaned up and the windows need to be boarded up before it's inhabitable again. Sheriff Boyd is more eager than ever to go out looking for answers. And we get flashbacks in this episode where we finally meet Boyd's wife, Abby. So we're going to swap back and forth between the current day scenes and the flashback scenes.
This episode is the one that most reminds me of the shows that we've typically covered in the past. Quantum Leap, and This Is Us.
Right,
with the time
where we're able to talk about back in the past, in the future.
That's one of the reasons why I appreciate this series is because it's a more clearer narrative. It doesn't require me to go, okay, now we're in the past, now we're in the future. So I hope it continues like that. We don't have too many episodes like this, but even if so, it's fine.
In Lost fashion, Lost really introduced us to the whole, constant flashbacks as a storytelling device.
So you can expect to see more of this.
I would expect to see more.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, we still don't know everybody's backstories.
I mean, hey, at least I had plenty of experience talking about those type of shows.
Right. Although you usually mess it up and say back in the past when you mean back in the future, present.
Right.
And it gets really confusing when there's 3 timelines.
Mm-hmm.
This Is Us did that a lot.
Yes.
All right. So we get this flashback. Boyd and Abby and Ellis are hauling a moving trailer. And that Sign song comes on, If I Had a Boat. And they're talking about this. We learn Boyd's military nickname was Mr. Fish and Loaves. He's retiring from the military. He really wants a boat. Abby's telling him, we can't afford a boat. But then she pulls out this set of keys that we have seen Boyd fondling all season. And they're keys to his new boat that she's surprising him with. But he'll never get to see that boat because they come upon the downed tree. And Father Kotri is actually the resident that pulls them off the street before dark on their first night in town. And things are different in the town that, Boyd and his family are arriving to than what we saw when the Matthews arrived. The monsters shriek, and the Stevens hide with Kotri and Donna and a bunch of other people underground. They all just kind of stand in a hole in the ground. And we hear serious death and dismemberment happening above them. Back in the present day, there we go, Boyd takes Sarah into the woods and tells her that Kotri is dead. He brings her to that shack where he had wanted to exile Frank to and tells her he'll be back later. Julie's reunited with her family. Jade comes to ask Julie where Victor is, to ask about that Polaroid picture because he heard that they were last seen together. And Jim distracts him with a new radio signal plan.
By the way, Jade is a complete nutcase in that scene. Like,
Jade's always a nutcase.
I mean, well, yes, of course, but he's really crazy in the scene. Like, he has, it's weird.
He's obsessive.
I don't know if this is how he was in his real
life. I
would
guess yes.
You really think he was that bad, even in his real life? Because I don't see how he would manage to function enough to be a
Also, we learned throughout this series that Victor likes to self-medicate.
Ah, gotcha.
And maybe he is not doing that as much as
Victor, or do you mean Jade?
Jade, sorry.
Okay.
Jade. I think Jade might have been better off staying in Colony House.
Yeah, probably, honestly.
Yeah.
So he's like, he has no awareness whatsoever. He just bursts through the door.
Yeah.
He's ignoring the fact that a lot of people died, including people that Julie would care about.
Right.
And he's just like, oh, there you are. He's just totally nuts.
Yeah, he's very, focused on whatever is in his brain, and that's all that matters to him.
Mm-hmm.
And that, is constant with him.
Right.
All right, so Donna, she's collecting stray body parts. We learned that 14 people died last night, and I don't know if that number includes Father Kotri or not.
Yeah,
she says 14 people at the house. I
thought she meant just the people at Colony House. I don't know if she was including Father Kotri in
so
that
14 or 15 people died, but the only ones with names that I think we had was Father Kotri and Trudy. And I already forgot his name.
Kevin.
Dude, Kevin, yeah, open the window. We didn't know him for long.
And
I think the first time we met him was when he was climbing those stairs.
Yeah, I pretty much don't want to know him because he's a moron.
Yeah. So yeah, she's cleaning up these body parts, and Jim and Jade ask her if they can build a tower on top of the house because it's the highest point in town on the highest hill, and they want to build and get a radio signal out over the tree line. And she was like, sure, whatever, we're not using the house. She kind of just doesn't care right now.
Right. I was actually really surprised that she gave in so easily. Because
I think at any other moment she wouldn't have, but she's done at this point. She's cleaning up her people's body parts. By herself, mind you. Nobody's there helping her.
And it's funny, I don't think they ever discover what the heck happened. Like, I don't think they know that Kevin is the reason for all
they
this.
just know this didn't work. The house failed.
Mm.
So in the flashback, Boyd and his family emerge from the ground after their first night, and there's lots of dead bodies everywhere. So whatever they're doing is not working. Like, people die every night. Donna and Kotri explain everything to them at the diner, which is abandoned. It's not being used like it is today. And Boyd immediately starts taking charge and making plans to organize people and supplies, and says, we're going to do things differently from now on.
That's Boyd using his former military skills.
So it's almost like he was brought here for a reason to help fix this town up. And flash forward to Julie hanging out in Tabitha's basement hole. This is where, again, Tabitha's going to spend most of her time for the rest of the season. She hardly ever leaves this basement.
I mean, she's pretty much as obsessive at this point as Jade is, though not as crazy.
Right. And her whole goal is to find out where the wire goes, which doesn't seem as important, maybe.
Right. I think at this point she's just, doing...
She needs something.
Yeah, busy work to keep herself sane.
Right. And so they have a conversation, and we learn how Thomas died. The mother and father were both next to him. He was, on a changing table. The phone rang. They were both distracted, and the baby fell and went splat.
It's a colorful image, for sure.
So Jim and Tabitha both blame themselves and each other, and Julie never knew these details. And now, she's understanding why their marriage is strained. And they hadn't thought to explain this to her. Maybe they thought she wasn't old enough to understand. But now she's heard the story, and Tabitha and Julie bond. Meanwhile, the colony house residents and the town residents are not getting along. Suddenly there's a shortage of food and supplies. Everybody's fighting over rations. Now, why can't they just go to Colony House and get their stuff?
Yeah, I don't quite understand that either.
Because they have food and rations at Colony House.
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe they are just scared to go there at this time.
Yeah, but somebody should be able to just go and bring stuff back, because you got all the stuff that supports all these people because you've been doing fine. It seems silly to me that all of a sudden we have this problem with resources just because the people are living somewhere different. So Kenny steps up and he tells Boyd and Donna they need to get their acts together.
That was a great scene. I love that.
Yeah. So all along, Kenny's been, like, giving resistance. Like, you can't leave now. And now he's basically like, you gotta go do it. What are you doing? Step it up. Come on. Let's get the plans together. Donna, everybody needs you.
You gotta be the scary badass that you always are.
And then Boyd fills Donna in on what his plans are. So all of our leadership is now on the same page. Finally.
Right.
Back in the past, Boyd has spent weeks exploring the woods during the days, and he finds livestock. We've wondered before, where did these chickens and goats come from? He found them in the woods. And then they keep them in a pen, and it surprises me that the monsters don't go after these animals, apparently.
I guess they don't like chickens.
No. Abby, the mom, is clearly starting to lose it. She's mumbling something about a dream she had when she was a little girl. And Ellis asks Boyd to stop exploring so much, to stay with Abby. She needs help. And he doesn't listen. He goes back out in the woods, promising to talk that night when he gets back. Except that dog comes, draws Boyd out deeper into the woods. He loses track of where he is, gets lost, and is not going to make it home before dark. This seems like a pretty scary moment. Of course, we know he lives because he's in the future.
Right. But it's a bad situation to be in, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's getting dark soon. He doesn't know his way back to town, and we have a very Minecraft moment. I don't know if you've ever played Minecraft.
I mean, I played it a little bit.
So that's all this scene reminds me of, is he goes into this little cave, and he's watching out through vines as the monsters come and walk around outside. And that's what your first night in Minecraft is. You dig a hole, or you go in a wall of a cave, and you just kind of sit there and hope you don't die while you watch the monsters that only come out at night.
Ah, so you're saying this series was inspired by that game?
Yeah, both games, Minecraft and I mentioned it before, Skyrim. I see them a lot in this show. Yeah. So he's in this little cave and he finds the talisman.
Now it's interesting to me. I'm kind of curious if maybe the rocks themselves also could have served the same function. Like if they have to be the talismans, because I think the rocks look very similar in material.
The talisman, there's holes in the wall where the talisman fit really perfectly. He didn't know what it was, but he quickly realized, well, this talisman must be the reason I survived the night. And he gathers them up and he takes them back to town. Now, I wouldn't depend on that as being something that's going to protect you outside of that cave, right? You don't know if these are not in their little spots, if they're actually going to work.
Right. The other thing that was curious is that even with the talismans, the monsters screw with you.
Oh, yeah.
So they're all looking at him, and they just walk away.
Right. Well, one thing could be because there was just so many talismans. Like, they were all there in that cave.
Gotcha. And I figured they would take the opportunity to, like, mess with his head.
And I feel like the number was mentioned somewhere. I don't have it in my note, but I feel like there's, like, 20-something talismans that exist. I could be making that up, but I feel like that number was out there somewhere. So back in the present, Boyd talks to Ellis ahead of his new journey to go out in the woods, because, that's his thing now. He goes back to the woods. And we see this resentment that Ellis has towards what happened in the past, which we still don't exactly know at this moment. Fatima convinces Ellis he's going to regret it if he doesn't make up with his dad before he leaves. In the past, we get to see what went down with Abby. Boyd comes back from spending the night in the cave. He's got the talisman, and he finds Abby shooting up the place, which is what Dale was talking about. And she's killing everyone in her wake, and she says it's okay, it's only a nightmare, and she's simply waking everyone up so that they can go home. So she thinks if I shoot them, it'll wake them up, they can go home, and I'm just helping everybody leave.
Now, I was actually kind of curious if this was a sign of, like, serious mental illness with the place that they're in affecting her, or if she genuinely believes this and this is an actual, like, sane thought process.
Right. Or it could even be true.
Right.
I mean, we don't know.
Right, exactly.
We don't know that dying here doesn't help you escape.
Yeah, for all we know.
I kind of think she's hearing voices or something similar to what Sarah was experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
I think like something is inspiring her to do this. So she aims at Ellis, and Boyd's forced to do the unthinkable. He shoots his wife before she could kill their son. And this suddenly everything makes sense. This is why Ellis is so angry with his dad and has never forgiven him for killing his mom.
Yeah, it's a pretty brutal scene.
Yeah.
It's the only one that echoes some of the scenes that happened in episode 7. This is more kind of a chill, explainy episode, kind of moving the chess pieces before we get into the final two, than episode 7 was, in my mind.
So after his talk with Fatima, Ellis follows Boyd back to the shack where, he's gone to pick up Sarah. And finally thanks him for saving his life and for finding the talisman and acknowledges that what happened with Abby wasn't his fault. And they make up. And then he sees that Sarah is there.
I was worried this entire scene that this was going to undermine the reconciliation.
Yeah.
That this was going to drive a wedge between them, Sarah being here. But yeah.
But so far that hasn't become an issue. Boyd basically says, you can't tell anybody she's with me. You gotta trust me. I need her. And then they say goodbye. Ellis returns to town. And let's see. Kenny takes the lead with Donna. And they bring both communities together. They ask everyone for their help to build the radio tower. The whole community is tasked with gathering supplies. And one more time we hear, if I had a boat. And Boyd and a handcuffed Sarah take off into the woods.
And I was pretty convinced at this point that the sheriff Boyd was not going to survive the season.
I mean, technically he has.
Yeah, he's not in a good situation.
He's not in a good situation, but he's kind of their main star. I don't think they're going to kill him.
You're not going to bring him back for the next season just to, kill him that way in the season premiere. So
you never know, though.
I mean, you could.
I feel like this is one of those shows that wants to shock you.
Mm-hmm.
But he is their headliner, so
yeah.
I don't know. Okay, so episode 9, the penultimate episode of the season. Boyd and Sarah make it to the Talisman Cave, and this is the farthest he's ever been from town. So he says, we're going to stay here for the night and start fresh in the morning with a full day of daylight ahead of us. Tabitha finally takes a break from digging the hole, and she goes to leave the basement, but instead she's climbing up a medieval tower. And we see all kinds of symbols. We see Ethan's finger puppets that he uses for his imaginary friend Norman. We see a dump truck, a playing card, a toy ambulance, and a glass bottle. And again, I take nothing that we see here for granted. I feel like every one of those things has to have a meaning. Some of them obviously already have meaning, like the toy ambulance. We've got the ambulance in the town. I have no idea what the dump truck or the playing card could mean, but I know it's going to come up eventually. Mm-hmm. These things all have to... I feel like this is one of those shows that you're going to come back to this scene in 3 years and be like, oh my god, look. Similar to how This Is Us did. In the second episode of the series, we get a close-up shot of the crock pot.
Right, yeah.
Which
absolutely.
You don't notice until, rewatch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh my goodness, it was right there.
The crock pot of death.
So then this scene's interlaced with shots of Tabitha standing outside at the town, and she's hearing a foghorn. And I'm pretty sure that the foghorn and this tower that she's in is the lighthouse that we end up seeing in the finale.
Mm-hmm.
The glass bottle that was on the stair falls down, and then we hear a phone ringing. And it's the phone from her nightmares from when her son died, which is really sad. And we hear baby Thomas crying, and then she looks up and we see all of these numbers written on the wall, on the stairs, and I'm pretty sure they're supposed to be years. And those numbers are 1506, 1609, 1931, 1864, 1752, 1883, 1978, 1672, and 1723.
This would seem to indicate to me that whatever is going on here has been going on for a really, really long time.
Right. And I cannot wait to find out what all of those numbers mean. 1864, I would guess, is somehow related to those Civil War soldiers
that's what I was
Jade
thinking.
keeps seeing. 1978, I feel, has to be around when Victor came here and those two cars came,
Mm-hmm.
the first time the two cars came. And yeah, and then there's a lot of really old numbers, which would obviously predate the physical existence of this town and these buildings. And I feel like there's a really big story they're trying to tell. And I think that's exciting.
I hope they get a chance to actually
To
tell
tell
that
the
story
story?
and not get canceled after 2 seasons.
Yeah, well, it's not NBC, so.
Right, right.
All right, and then she sees Jim hanging upside down in the tower. He screams, but his voice is the foghorn, and it's also the horn of the RB as they crashed. And Tabitha wakes up. It was all just a dream, of course.
It's a really crazy dream.
It's a really crazy dream, and of course it's not just a dream. But remember, Abby was having dreams. All right, so Colony House residents, they're sleeping in the police station, and they wake up to find one of their own, Eric, has hung himself. And Donna blames herself. She's not taking this very well. She takes her frustrations out on Colony House by ripping up the floorboards when Kenny says they need wood. She has a little bit of a breakdown.
Yeah, that scene was pretty scary. Like watching her, like, go to town with an axe on on the house. Like, whoa! You gotta stop her from doing that because
we're destroying all of our houses here.
Right.
Yeah, it's not good. Fatima's worried that the radio signal will work because she doesn't know what will happen between her and Ellis if they go back to the real world.
Right.
Which is kind of
It's an understandable concern.
Boyd and Sarah continue on their walk through the woods after surviving a night in the cave, and they talk about Sarah's voices, which she says they told her if she didn't do everything that they said that Nathan would die, which he did. But along with everyone else, they told her everybody's going to die if you don't, kill the people we tell you to kill. And then they hear a clinking sound, and they find a tree full of glass bottles, similar to that bottle from Tabitha's dream.
Yep.
And all of the bottles have papers inside of them, and as they're going to explore this, Sarah has another seizure. Back in the town, Tabitha and her kids examine Victor's drawings for clues. They talk about going home. Ethan says he doesn't want to go home because he likes the way their family is close here. And that's where we kind of get like this thought, like maybe you're here for a reason. You're here to mend your family. Like, is it good that you're here?
It's kind of a really strange form of therapy. That's
yeah,
for sure.
It is. Okay, so all this whole episode, Jade and Jim have been stressing about how to create a power source for the radio. The car batteries aren't enough. And I find this literally the funniest moment of the whole season. Kenny's mom flicks on the lights and tells Jade, "You need electric? Like, here you go."
I absolutely adore that scene. That was like another example of the Jade and Kenny's mom relationship. It was really, really funny. Really
now
well
the
done.
problem, of course, is that the power that runs through the lights comes from that hole in the basement. We don't know where it comes from. There's not actually electrical wire running through it. And all of the items that they've brought with them to town, like, they can't actually plug anything in. There's no electricity that they know how to harvest. But nonetheless, Jade's inspired by what she just did, and he has an idea. And he runs off to go talk to Jim. But the whole Matthews family is working on that hole in the basement now. She recruited her entire family to help her. And Tabitha hits the bottom of the dirt under the basement. Meanwhile, Boyd and Sarah are set up for the night in a tent. They got a talisman hanging from the top of the tent, which that seems like a stretch that you'd think that would work. It was one thing that it works in a vehicle, but now you're using it like in a piece of fabric. I'd be really scared.
Yeah, he has way too much confidence in that. It certainly wasn't making me feel any better about it.
So this is the first time we've reunited with them after Sarah's seizure. So she just woke up. So Boyd set up this tent and brought her into the tent. All of this while she was like unconscious. He tells her he retrieved one of the bottles from the tree, and there's a paper inside that says 1864, which of course is one of those years from Tabitha's dream. While Sarah had her seizure, she heard a woman's voice, and she said it sounded different than the other voices she hears. And this woman told her that she was wrong, and they shouldn't have come. The voice said, "Tell Mr. Fish and Loaves that I was wrong." And similarly to this drawing she made for Father Kotcher, she has no idea what this message means, but we do. And it sure seems like this is Abby telling Boyd that she was wrong and should not have given him that sign, sending him on this journey. Yeah,
and Sarah also mentions that there's worse things in the woods than the monsters.
Right.
Which, it's kind of a worrisome thought.
Yeah.
Is this the is this the point the episode where they end up getting dragged into
Yes,
tent?
that's
Okay,
what
that is-
happens
okay.
next. Boyd and Sarah hear a sound in the woods, and their tent gets dragged along the ground. They go rolling around in this tent. I'm not really sure how far they are dragged, but the insinuation is they were dragged quite a distance. And then they're in this tent looking for the talisman, which fell somewhere, and they hear a foghorn, the same foghorn we heard in Tabitha's dream, and they see a spotlight flashing on the tent.
This scene
And
really freaked me.
That's the episode.
Yeah, this scene really freaked me out.
Yeah, it's intense. It's
Yeah.
like, what is that about?
Right,
Very
right.
different from anything that we've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Whew.
We're almost at
We're
the end of
almost
this
there.
thing.
One more episode. You ready?
Yep, I'm
All
ready.
right,
Let's do it.
episode 10. We start with Jade arriving to the Matthews house. Remember, he's rushing over there because he has a plan. And he takes apart their ugliest lamp. Says, however it works, electricity comes out of the top of this thing to light this light bulb. So he wires a hairdryer that came in a car, which they normally would have no way of using, and hooks the wire into the top of the light socket, and it works. So normally they wouldn't be able to use any of this stuff, but now they have a way of harvesting the electricity through the lamps, which are hooked to the house, which go into the basement hole. In the woods, Sarah and Boyd have a conversation about worms. And she's curious if the worms know where they are, if they know that they're in this weird and crazy existence. And Boyd's insights are that, if you cut a worm in half, it becomes 2 worms. And she wants to know, what does he mean by that? And his response is, well, it means worms are creepy. They exit the tent, because morning is here now, and they want to see where they ended up after being dragged. And they're surrounded by spider webs, like a lot of them. And remember, way back in the RV, Ethan had that dream about a big spider.
Yes.
At the diner, Jim and Jade ask the whole town for help finding wires that came out of cars. They need all of the came out of a car wire they can in order to turn Colony House into a big battery to run the radio tower. Kenny and Christy have a heart-to-heart about where they want to go and what they want to do if they get out of here, and he invites her to come with him to Iceland, but she reminds him that she has a fiance at home.
That was a really good scene between the two of them. It was kind of sad.
Yeah, it's kind of sad.
Because, all season long we've seen little moments between the two of them of their developing relationship.
Yeah. And he took his chance and was shot down.
He shot his shot and didn't make it.
All right, the bartender tells Tabitha he doesn't think the radio is going to work. That's why he's not at Colony House helping. Now, I've seen a lot of people speculate that this bartender, I think his name is Tom, is somehow involved in all this. Like he's with the, not aliens, no, with the monsters was the word I was looking for, or with the captors, or with whoever is behind this.
I kind of just took him at face value and just assumed that he was the old guard type of guy who's been around for a while and seen plenty of people with creative ideas that all fail.
Yeah.
And so he's quite a bit more jaded.
Sure, it could be. But yeah, I've definitely seen people questioning who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope we do get to hear more about him, because we don't know much about this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he does seem to have, like, he's been around a while. He's told us that. So whatever side he's on, he definitely knows things.
Right.
Ellis takes Fatima outside to the spot where he was standing when he first saw her a year ago when she got to town. And he tells her that no matter where they go, he wants to be wherever she is, and proposes to her with a ring made out of the wire they've been salvaging. And of course she says yes.
Aww. I guess Julie
her fears that, if they get home, they're not going to be together.
I guess Julie lost her chance.
Yeah. Boyd and Sarah walk through the spider webs towards the direction where the light came from last night. And he tells her that he is Mr. Fish and Loaves, and the voice that she heard was his wife. Now, of course, we also know that the monsters seem to know everything about everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and I would take this with a grain of salt.
Right.
I'm not convinced that the signs came from the people that they think the signs came from, or that this voice saying I shouldn't have told you that came from her.
Right.
At this point, I don't trust anything anybody says.
Yeah, me too.
He hears Abby's voice, and then he sees her wrapped up in this giant spider web. It's another moment that seems a lot like Skyrim. And he goes to her, but she's not really there. It's a hallucination. And now he's covered in all of these little spiders and gets bit up.
Yeah, I was wondering, they seem like really hard to get off. Like, these are not normal spiders.
No, it was all these spiders. They're like biting him, and Sarah had to help like pick them off of his skin like ticks.
Right.
And as they continue hiking, the spider bites start affecting him. He has trouble even standing up. It's not going good. And I'm wondering if this is also somehow related to his Parkinson's or to what he's been attributing to Parkinson's. Maybe it's really something this town has been doing to him.
Maybe.
Ethan tells his dad that Victor is off doing his part of the quest, and it must be something really important, and this is their part to do the radio. So he's pretty confident that Victor's okay, and he's doing something important, even though we haven't heard from Victor since Julie went into that faraway tree in episode 7.
Right, so a couple of episodes at this point.
They get the wooden tower hoisted up on the roof, and then Jade sneaks back to Kenny's house looking for his last rolling paper. But I'm pretty sure he could have found whatever he was looking for right at Colony House. They seem to be pretty well equipped.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually what Jade was doing at that point. I don't think he was actually going for rolling papers.
Oh, I believe him, because there was always this animosity between, like, Jim had a problem with the fact that he was smoking and like being distracted by the things that were in front of them. Like a few times he called him out on it throughout the series.
Gotcha.
So I think he's just like, fine, you want to know what I'm doing? I'm going to tell you what I'm doing.
Right.
Let's see. So he gets back to Kenny's house. You know, that's where Jade's staying. And he has a chat with Kenny's mom.
It's a great scene between
Yeah,
the two
and
of them.
she's praying at her husband's memorial. And he tells a story about how he grew up in France with his grandma. And after his grandma died, he had to come to the U.S. to live with his uncle. And he didn't want to leave because he'd be leaving his grandma all alone there where she was buried with no one to visit her. And Jade was really perceptive here, figuring out why Kenny's mom was sad about the idea of going home. And a woman told young Jade, they come with you when you go. And he now passes that message on here to Kenny's mom. And they return to Colony House together with baskets of food and snacks for everybody. And just when you think Jade might be okay, a decent human being, he threatens to put anyone who fucks up into the box.
Yes, that's a class act move there.
Jim shows Ethan and us how to use a screwdriver to tune the different radio frequencies. We're learning how this is all supposed to work. Christy confronts Kenny about her dilemma between wanting to reunite with her fiancé and wanting to, I'll quote, go to Iceland with the most amazing guy she met in the most fucked up place possible.
Aww.
And he seems really happy that this is a possibility. And they like hold hands in a really awkward way.
Yeah, and she doesn't even really answer his question as to what this is now. She's just like, and we don't really, it cuts away from
she's admitting to him like, oh, I do have feelings.
I do have feelings, but this is
but
complicated.
I'm still conflicted.
Right.
And kind of get the insinuation that, hey, if this doesn't work out, us leaving, maybe, we can progress.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Tabitha arrives. She left her basement hole, and she comes up to the Colony House just in time to see the radio being hoisted up on the roof, and everyone is gathered around except for perhaps the bartender who said this is a waste of time, and the still missing Victor. They gathered in anticipation, and the radio gets a signal. So they're all happy, and they're ready to start transmitting a message out, trying to get an answer. And already, Tabitha leaves because she has to go back to her hole in the basement. It is calling her. She was here for about 30 seconds, which seems really silly.
Right.
Why did you bother coming?
I was actually kind of curious if something was making her do that.
It's possible.
That she was being influenced in some way.
Very obsessed over this hole.
Right.
All right, so they try frequency after frequency to transmit a message, but there's a storm rolling in. Which,
I'm kind of curious, is a storm a typical thing that happens around here?
Nobody seemed freaked out by that.
Right.
Like the fact that it's happening. And it was happening where Boyd and Sarah are at too. And Boyd's ready to give up again. They hear the foghorn. Sarah convinces him, let's keep going. We're almost there. Wherever there is. They have no idea if they're walking to salvation.
Or death.
Or to their death. Right. They have no idea, but it's the only thing they know to do because they have no idea where they're at. They have no idea where the town is because they were dragged. So this is the only direction that they have any reference to is they're walking towards the light and towards that foghorn.
I'm kind of curious. how far into the woods can you walk before you just end up back in town?
Right, and
Because
that's something Sarah was questioning. Like, how do you know the woods aren't just like the road? Because the road goes in a loop, but they've never really traveled sideways through the woods before. You know, he's never gone that far, so that's what he was like. Well, we're gonna find out.
Right.
That's our quest is to find out what happens if we just keep walking through the woods. How big is our perimeter, even if it does loop around? Like, what else is out there? So they get to the top of this rocky ledge and they see a lighthouse, of all things. And again, I'm pretty sure this is the tower that Tabitha was in her dream. And also, is there an ocean? Because that's where lighthouses are found.
Right. I was confused by that. Like, what is the purpose of this lighthouse?
Yeah.
What exactly is it?
I'm sure we'll get to that in season 2.
I'm sure we will.
That's we aren't really told here. There's a lighthouse. Okay. I've seen a lot of speculations that they're at the Lake of Tears, which is something from Ethan's storybook.
Gotcha.
That story kept coming up, and I feel, again, you got to pay every attention to every word that little boy says, because he seems to have some serious insights.
I will remember that for season 2.
So, Jim sends Ethan into the house because it started raining. Donna takes over with the screwdriver, and they're about to pack it in because the rain's falling pretty hard, and, you know, Donna's like, the wind's going to knock this tower down and destroy everything we just built. Let's just pack it in and we'll try again tomorrow when it's not raining. And I found it really convenient that they had built a place to put an umbrella right above the radio. That was a little weird. But they're just about to pack it in and they get a response to their message on the radio. And there's a voice, and Jim is so happy to be talking to someone. He's so relieved. And instead of getting to the point, he rambles on a little bit, and the voice knows that he's Jim Matthews and says that his wife should not be digging that hole.
And I am very curious as to who Jim is talking to at this moment.
So Jim runs off towards home to check on Tabitha. Meanwhile, Tabitha uses a pickaxe that she got from the bartender earlier in the episode, and she goes through that solid part of the floor that she had reached, and she falls through to somewhere below.
And we see, by the way, the wires dangling.
The wire that she's been following down into the earth is there, and it's hooked to absolutely nothing.
I have a speculation about this. I'm kind of curious if the monsters are feeding on the town, and somehow also, by feeding on them, providing energy.
Okay, that's interesting. One thing that this makes me feel like is, like, are they in, like, a dollhouse or something?
Right.
Like, the electricity is not real, so are these all just, like, toys? You know what I mean? Like
a model that someone else is playing with, basically.
Yeah, right.
And then, you know, maybe it's a 10-year-old playing with this, and then the monsters come, and then...
Right.
Yeah, maybe.
So she's in this hole, and Victor is there. We finally found out where Victor is, and Victor says the boy in white told him that she would come and he should wait for her. And he says this is where they sleep, so they have to get going. We see cave drawings all around them, and then Victor pulls her away just as the hole collapses in. Jim gets home, and he very strangely sees that their whole living room floor has collapsed over the hole in the basement.
Well, good job, guys. Now you don't have a house to live in.
Yeah, the living room floor has fallen into the basement, and his wife is gone.
You know, I thought the whole digging a hole into the basement, taking all the dirt out, was a very bad idea.
Yeah.
And this pretty much proves me right.
You know, that's another Minecraft reference. That's what you Minecraft. You dig a hole, dig a hole, dig a hole.
Do you end up falling into this creepy basement area?
Sometimes you fall into lava and die.
Well, that's unfortunate.
So Boyd, again, is about to give up. He tells Sarah, go on alone, go tell the town, save everybody. I'm just going to, like, lay here and die. And then the boy in white appears to Sarah and tells her they have to go into the tree. There's a faraway tree right there. So she gets Boyd to go into the tree. She hands him the talisman, by the way. So she doesn't have the talisman. Boyd has it in his hand. And he goes through the tree, which we know is very unpredictable. It could bring you anywhere. And he brings him into this really tiny little chimney-like structure. It's like a 1 by 1 foot square opening of stone walls all around him. And he is trapped, and that is super scary.
I have seen some speculation that he is in the lighthouse somehow.
He could be in anywhere.
Right.
Could be a whole new land that we're about to find. But Sarah doesn't follow him.
Mhm.
Now, it's unclear. Did she not go in the tree, or did she just end up somewhere different? Because we know the tree isn't necessarily going to grow to the same place.
Yeah,
every
we
time.
don't see her again for the rest of the episode.
Right. And then what we do see is a bus from Grand Rapids pulls up at the diner, which is our setup for season 2.
And like I said at the top, I am so happy that I watched this last night, and that I only have a couple of days instead of like a full year before I get to watch.
I mean, it's been
premiere
over a
season 2.
year since this ended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad I picked this up now and not a year ago, because I would have been so pissed.
So one thing to note is Christy's from Grand Rapids.
Mm-hmm.
There's heavy speculation that her fiance is one of the people on this bus.
Oh, okay.
Which would be really sad for Kenny.
Yes, that would be a really interesting way to screw with Kenny, that's for sure.
So that is the season. That's a reminder. Everything that happened in season 1 on from. The first episode of season 2 is airing very shortly. And I can't wait to see what happens. I do know from the previews that there's going to be a lot of people on the bus.
I haven't actually even seen the previews yet.
I've only seen like a teaser. I don't know if a longer one has been released. It probably has. When the episode aired, like the whole speculation was, well, we don't know how many people's on the bus. It could be just one person. It could just be a driver and an empty bus. Or it could be 50 people. So there was all speculation about that. We have seen with the trailer that there's a lot of people on the bus. We also see in the trailer that Smiley is on the bus.
Oh.
Not everybody who's on that bus is going to survive long enough to find out about this town.
Yeah, I noticed in the press release for season 2 that they're adding a bunch of different actors to the cast.
Yes, they've announced the names of, I think, 5 or 6 confirmed regular cast members. So probably most people are going to die very quickly.
Yeah,
which is
those 6
it's
probably
good because we can't introduce 30 new characters.
Right. We're just getting to know the characters that we have been getting to know all season long. So, and so do you have any other thoughts on this season?
I think just all of these small details. They're all going to mean something, and you just remember all of that stuff as we move forward and keep picking up clues. And we're going to be here every week talking about the episodes as they happen and trying to dig out those clues and speculate on what the heck is going on here. I'm
looking forward to it, and definitely looking forward to doing this with you. We would like to know what you think about our podcast, about the season 1 of From, speculation about season 2. Stacie can be reached at...
I can be reached on Twitter at TVN Coupon Talk.
All right. If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can join my Corbin Productions Facebook page. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can buy me a coffee, which is a new way to support content creators such as myself. You can buy something from the Corbin Productions store on Zazzle. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this podcast, as well as subscribing to our channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Corbin Productions, signing off.